Okay, tell me more about the house.
Well, with the coal furnace and all this woodwork, tons and tons of woodwork, and he had downstairs, we had 2 pocket doors, one going from the front living room to the hall. Actually, we had 3. And then one from the front living room to the living room, and the other one from the living room into the dining room. And this is, they blocked it off a lot when they, in the winter time, because with a coal furnace, it was kind of hard to keep all of this warm. But, so the coal furnace was caused the woodwork to be dirty. So I was scrubbing the woodwork in the living room, and Grandpa comes in and says, "Oh, don't you paint that? Don't you paint that?" And I said, "I'm not painting it. I'm cleaning up the dirt that's on it." So that's made a big difference between the dirt and after I cleaned it.
Wow, yeah.
But there was just a whole lot of woodwork, and the wood mainly is, it was wood that was on the property.
Okay.
And so then,
well, do you know when he built the house, did he build it himself, or did he have help, or?
Well, I'm sure he had help, because they had horses to dig the cellar, and then this place was part of Arthur Holt's Mills, and they had a large dam back there for the water for the mill. Well, when they closed that up, then Grandpa got a lot of the stone for the foundation of the house.
Okay.
So that wasn't really real good, because to have a stone foundation, kind of damp.
Right, okay, but other houses being built at the time, did they even have a basement?
That's what he built, was with the horses that dug out the
But
basement.
I'm saying other houses,
Oh,
did they
no.
have basements?
No, and another thing is, he had electricity. And the people from Sharon would come out to see the house, because they had never had electricity in a house and never saw a basement in the house. And
How did he was that something unusual?
yeah, very
So
unusual.
how did he have electricity? I mean, other neighbors didn't?
Well, it came probably from Majory, because
Okay.
Mr. Majory moved there. That's why it was called Majory, and had a factory. And so I would imagine it came from Majory, because it came up Yankee Run Road.
Okay.
And then to the house. But the bathroom, they had well water, but some of the people in the bathroom, they didn't have the cleaners and so forth that we have today, and the people would say, "Phew, I'm not having one of those in my house." But yeah, it was we lived here, Grandpa lived 20 years after we moved in here. So there's quite a history of the house and Arthur Holt's Mills and so forth. He had horses and the corn crib, and had
Cattle, right?
yeah, he only had horses for work,
Okay.
but they raised beef, and he had chickens.
Okay.
And I remember one day I drove in the driveway, and there was this, what I thought was a big long branch out of the tree. And I came in and I said, "Grandpa, there's a..." Oh, so when I stopped and looked at it real close, it was a black snake.
Okay.
So I came in and said to Grandpa, "I'm going to kill that, there's a black snake out here, I'm going to kill it." And he said, "Oh, no, no, no." So he walked out, hit the black snake with his stick, and it curled up into a ball, because black snakes will choke, curled up into a ball, and he bounced it all the way down the driveway to the chicken coop, because he said they will eat the mice, to keep the mice out of the chicken coop.
Wouldn't eat the chickens or the eggs, apparently?
No, it didn't deserve those. They just ate the animals.
Okay. Okay, so you're saying that you moved in here in the early 50s then, right?
Right.
Okay. And by that time, was Carl out of the service, or was he still?
Yeah, we didn't move in until he got out of the service.
Okay. So you got married. Well, you got married. Where'd you live when you got married?
With my parents in East Liverpool till.
Okay.
And then we got married in -- and he got out. This house was full, just full of antiques. And the attic, when...
Were they antiques then?
No.
No, it was just full of furniture, which is now, would now be antiques.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the attic was so full of furniture you couldn't get through. It was just a path through it, because as the families passed away, he'd take their furniture and store it in the attic.
Okay.
And so we moved here. We moved in here about 53, I think.
Okay.
And
So at this time, after Carl got out of the service, what did he do for work?
he worked for Dictaphone Corporation. And they used to bring their equipment here for him to build some of it and down at the basement, and he'd work down at the basement working on that for quite a while. Then he worked at Westinghouse. I think he went to Westinghouse first, but he was allergic to something they worked with.
Okay.
He had to leave. Then he went to Dictaphone Corporation. He worked a lot of different jobs for the fellow in Brookfield who had a little electric store.
So it was always pretty much electrical type work?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and obviously he was always good at that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Tell me more about him, about what he was like and what he did.
He was very quiet, and he had a car, an old car.
What did he work on around the house? I mean, we know things he did around here that were really pretty amazing. What was some of those things?
Well, when they took the potbelly stove out of the kitchen, you know, he did a lot of work with that. And then he said to me, "We're not going to do anything to the house because we aren't going to be here that long." Well, we've been here now, what, 50, 60 years. And but he did a lot of work, not really, you know, he worked for a lot of different people.
Okay.
You know, just odd jobs that they wanted, but even though he had a steady job, but on weekends and other times he'd, you know, people would say, "Hey, I need this or that," he'd work for them.
All right, he was a hustler then. He did a lot of odd jobs and...
Yeah, he was on the National Honor Society when he was in high school, and but he had a couple friends, and of course his mother, Carl's mother, passed away when Carl was 11, and so he had a couple friends whose mothers were also gone, and the one friend was working on a farm and on a baler or something, and the equipment fell over on him and killed him. So that was terrible, a terrible tragedy for Carl, because they were good friends. But then he helped here on the farm and helped. We did so much canning. Oh my! And the juicer for making the tomato juice was all done by hand. You know, you turn the hand. Well, he had to put electric motor on it.
Okay.
And we had candles that were regular candles, and he had to have electric candles. He, you know, everything had to be electronic. It was very good in electronics.
Well, what about the alarm system in the house here?
Yeah, he put in the alarm system, and in the house. And I always did, let's see, we had a car, 2 tractors, and then Carl got into, he had a bulldozer and so forth. And at Christmas time, Carl's dad had a lot of pine trees out in the back. So I would hop on the tractor and trailer and by myself, which I am amazed now, but I did, and went out to the woods and cut out all these limbs off the pine trees and decorated the deck. Carl had built a deck on the porch here. We enclosed the porch, back porch, and built a deck, which is beautiful deck.
About when was that? When you built the deck on the house?
Oh, it's been quite a while.
I'm trying to remember because, I mean, I remember before.
Well, back to us getting married and moving here, we had 2 children. Ken was born in 56 and Larry in 58. And Ken was interested in what Carl was doing, and when Dictaphone brought a lot of their instruments here, or their equipment here, Ken would say, how does that work? What does that do? What do you do with it? He was very inquisitive. And of course, Larry was the quiet one and liked to read, and I had a record player with the books, and he'd sit and listen to that.
Yep.
But they went to preschool. I took them to the Presbyterian Church in Sharon, where they had a preschool. And of course, they went to church and Sunday school. And gosh, there's so much that went on around here. But anyway, we had the 2 boys, and Carl built the deck. And then pretty soon, we wanted a swimming pool, so he himself dug all the ground and put in a swimming pool. Well, we then, Carl had a truck, and he bought a truck camper to put on the back. So we would go camping, and then we got a boat as the boys were getting older and we were getting older. And went over to Allegheny and did a lot of water skiing at Mosquito.
Wow.
So then, we did a lot of camping. We'd go to Florida in the winter and with the camper and stayed down at Periwinkle Park on Sanibel. And so I always liked to work on crafts, and Carl was going to build a 5-car garage because of the tractors and the cars and so forth. And there was only one. There was a 3-story barn, a bank barn that he used once in a while. We entered on the 3rd floor, and then he had. It was on a hill, and then he had an entrance for the 2nd and the lower. And so Carl decided to build a 5-car garage. So I said to him, gee, I wouldn't mind having one of those bays for to work on my crafts and get them out of the house. And he said, I'll give you 2 in case if you ever decide to go into the business, you'll have enough room for them. So he was still building the garage, and he had all 5 overhead garage doors on, and beads started to be very popular with the crafts. So I advertised in the paper, beads, and more beads, and I had people lined up clear down the driveway to get into this little 1st-car garage. So we added on the 2nd one, and I was teaching classes on resin and macrame and stuff like that. So I kept on saying to Carl, I have to have more room. I have to have more room. So I had another bay, and then pretty soon I ended up taking all 5. Well, he built himself a warehouse, he called it. He didn't build it. We had it built. A big warehouse, huge. And so people were saying to me, where do you buy your supplies? And I thought, I'm not going to tell them, I'll talk to the manufacturer. So I got in touch with the manufacturers, and they said you cannot wholesale out of a retail store. So I started using the warehouse that Carl built. And he ended up having one little corner, but he did a lot of woodwork, like planing and stuff like that for people. And
well, by that time he had the sawmill too, right?
Yeah, and he had a sawmill. And but then Larry was at Jones and Laughlin in Pennsylvania, and they closed up. And Ken was interested in radio control cars and in airplanes and so forth, and Larry was too. So they started racing cars in one of our fields, and it got to be quite a habit. So they said, what are we going to do in the winter time? After I took over the first 5 bays, we added on another 64 by whatever, a large area in the back. Well, then behind that, Larry built this building, probably about 100 by 64,
Something like that.
And had radio control car races. And so we had quite, it got to be quite popular. And so out here in the country with no restaurant and 90 people on a weekend, on a day that would come out to race their cars, I decided to buy a concession stand. So the girl that worked for me would like to cook. So we bought that concession stand. Well, after a while, people started going other places to race, so they closed up their business, and I sold the concession stand, and with the profits, we went to Florida.
Wow.
Or Hawaii, not Florida, Hawaii.